Prime Minister then joined Trump at a rally aboard the USS Washington, where she got to hear him just rambling to our troops on a range of subjects, including magnets. He hates magnets. He hates magnets, windmills, and sharks. But he loves steam.
I want to know, catapults, which is better, the electric or the steam? They had steam, which works so beautifully. Steam, they said they could fix it with a hammer and a blowtorch. I love the sight of that beautiful steam pour.
Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale, even a 5-year-old.
Two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because he's...
America under Trump has reached a fresh height of absurdity that feels like an unwanted plot twist in a long-running series. The kind where the surprises are so reckless, the writers would rather toss the script and reboot the whole thing. And in the middle of that chaos, JD Vance somehow shifted from the memoir seller who claimed he escaped the Rust Belt and found his purpose to the most eager hype man in Trump's corner, smiling through every mess like he is auditioning for the worst buddy comedy ever filmed. And then Jimmy Kimmel did not simply roast the duo, he carved them with measured precision like someone who has been holding back a laugh for 8 long years and finally let it out.
Stay Puft Marshmallow Ankles was back home at the White House tonight, handing out candy to children. One of the kids was dressed as, you can see him here on the right side, as a light-up marshmallow. And watch this, because this is something Trump has done in the past. Instead of putting candy in the bag, he puts it on. JD Vance is crushing it when it comes to policy.
How will we lower the cost of daycare? It's such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more. Or
Jimmy Kimmel hilarious reaction on JD Vance's daycare solution. His plan to lower costs is to guilt-trip grandma into free labor.
Maybe there's
Kimmel did not even need a full monologue to make the point. He needed cleaning supplies because Trump's flood of nonsense splashed everywhere faster than new slogans could be printed on hats. And what they call a partnership looks more like an endless blooper reel. Trump talks, Vance nods, the country winces, and somewhere a bald eagle quietly applies for asylum.
And when we run out of steam, we're going to oxen, big teams of beautiful oxen. He loves steam. And then he closed things out as only Donald Trump can.
JD Vance has become the human version of a campaign bumper sticker that stayed on far too long. Faded at the edges, curling at the corners, and oddly proud to be stuck to a machine rolling downhill. And his admiration for Trump is not strategy, but worship, as if standing beside disorder will make him look like order. Yet instead of rising, he sinks while smiling all the way down, like a passenger on the Titanic who keeps insisting it is a luxury cruise.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations. And every home, every bar, every strip club, and every prison in America. But, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your bullshit. Go on.
There's something else that's important here, Laura, which is that these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve.
Kimmel saw it instantly and did not just notice the hypocrisy, he lit it up like a late-night infomercial that refuses to end. Because in Trump's orbit, integrity is the first thing to vanish, soon followed by basic coherence. And JD Vance's big turn from critic to cheerleader was not growth. It was a transaction where self-respect was evicted, the spine was traded for spotlight, conviction was swapped for convenience, and the applause came from a crowd that will cheer for anything wearing a red tie.
You know, we used to send the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders on these USO tours, and Now we have this. Meanwhile, while Trump's slurping noodles in Japan, we're on day 28 of his big, beautiful government shutdown. Air traffic controllers missed their first paycheck today. So if you are visiting us from out of town, you live here now.
Trump, meanwhile, is doing the one thing he knows best: performing the presidency like a community theater production where every appearance is a show and every speech is a one-man act nobody requested. And now he has JD Vance as the sidekick who claps off-beat and repeats the chorus after the music stops, which turns the whole routine into the political version of karaoke gone wrong. Except the microphone never cuts, the stage lights never dim, and the audience cannot leave.
You know, if you go to a Jimmy Kimmel live viewing, you have to really be a humorless scold.
Did you hear what he just called you? He called you humorless scolds. What is wrong with you people? Are you trying to make JD's mascara run? What's going? A humorless scold. Who talketh like that?
Kimmel's takedown was not only funny, but systematic. He pulled apart the myth that Trump's chaos has purpose and that JD's loyalty has depth. And he reminded everyone that the only constant with this crew is inconsistency. One day it is law and order, the next it is whatever boosts the numbers. So the Trump and Vance pairing is not leadership, but an endless open mic night at democracy's expense. And each time JD tries to sound wise, it feels like watching the student recite a report he never read. The comparisons fall flat. The lesson fades halfway. And Trump still takes top billing, which Kimmel underlines so clearly you could hear a national groan from people tired of pretending this circus counts as government, because that is exactly what it has become, a circus with no animals left, only clowns in the center ring, and JD's job is to shuffle behind with a broom and call it service. His brand built on agreeing louder than anyone, where Trump says the sky is green and JD nods like he heard a revelation. Trump drops a fact, and JD calls it strategy, a loyalty so extreme it looks like performance art, with almost no one laughing except Kimmel, who keeps proving that satire draws a bigger crowd than cabinet meetings.
Other than that, things were a little bit different this year because of the construction that's going on at the White House. They had to improvise a bit. They had to move around, and, they want to get that ballroom finished, so they just went right ahead with the demolition while the trick-or-treating was happening. The kids had fun, though. The Department of Agriculture was there, and kids love that. Handing out mini pumpkins, and the U.S. Postal Service was there with a Be Best postcard station. They gave the children Be Best postcards. I didn't know Be Best was...
The irony is that JD Vance once tried to cast himself as the reasonable Republican, a bridge between raw populism and basic sanity. Yet now, he is burning that bridge and roasting marshmallows over the coals. And Trump does not merely attract loyalty, he consumes it, chews it, and spits it back as applause, which Kimmel recognized for what it is, not a movement, but a codependent spectacle built on self-preservation, where each rally becomes a masterclass in managing emotional chaos, with recycled promises, rehearsed outrage, and slogans so stale they might as well have expiration dates. While JD stands there smiling like a man told he has joined history without noticing, it is the kind of history textbooks skip. And Kimmel did not need to exaggerate, because an honest description already sounds like parody, as Trump keeps selling disaster as destiny, treating scandal as proof of persecution, and dressing mistakes as a master plan, while JD calls that resilience, and Kimmel calls it what it is: damage control wrapped in denial and dipped in delusion, with the president spinning chaos like cotton candy, and JD simply holding the stick.
Everyone needs to just crack open a Bud Light and relax already. Even the vice president took a break from humping his ottoman to complain about not just me, you.
On Jimmy Kimmel's television program and on The Daily Show this week, you have audiences outright cheering, seeing the images of Teslas on fire across the country. And I saw that and I thought, man, that really is a sign of how much the left has conditioned people to think that that's acceptable.
Yeah, though I will say in defense of the American people, Jimmy Kimmel's show is so unfunny and boring and left-wing that it's...
Watching Trump and Vance share a stage is like seeing a magician and an assistant argue over who gets credit for the rabbit. Trump performs the trick and JD claps first, which is not policy but performance art, backed by a soundtrack of cheers and confusion. And the twist is that Kimmel no longer needs to invent jokes because the headlines deliver them daily. And his roast landed because it did not punch down, but cut across the nonsense with clean angles. As Trump's America turns governing into branding, and JD plays along like an unpaid intern, mistaking turmoil for mentorship. So it feels like a sequel no one wanted to a reality show no one finished. And Kimmel's sharpness comes from pointing it out without bitterness, with that calm smirk that says you cannot parody what already parodies itself, while Trump rewrites history one press conference at a time, and JD adds footnotes like a man trying to justify a shaky plot. And the comedy writes itself, while Kimmel polishes the timing, not mocking their existence, but the audacity of calling this governance. As Trump speaks in chaos, JD answers with cliches, and somewhere between them, democracy pauses to check its pulse.
It was a bigly busy day for the president this morning, or maybe it was last night, I don't know. He was in South Korea meeting with the president of China for trade negotiations, which, according to one expert who was there, went very, very well.
I thought it was a great meeting. I think it was a very friendly meeting. It was a good meeting for two very large, powerful countries. Overall, I guess on the scale of from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, I would say the meeting was a 12.
Wow.
Every rally on the road plays like the same scene rerun with a fresh slogan. The flags wave, the crowd chants, and the contradictions multiply. Trump labels it energy while Kimmel calls it reruns. And when JD steps up to defend the show, he looks like a man who just lost an argument with his own reflection. Which means Kimmel does not need to shout because the absurdity carries the load. And there is always a point in a political fall when someone insists everything is fine. A role JD Vance has turned into full-time work. As Trump claims victory over logic, and JD applauds like a background extra who missed his cue. A picture Kimmel did not invent so much as hold steady long enough for everyone to see. And as long as the show keeps rolling, Kimmel will be there with humor and receipts and the nerve to prove that comedy at its sharpest does more than entertain. It exposes. Because what he understands and what Trump Circle refuses to face is that the spectacle only works if the audience keeps clapping. And lately the clapping sounds forced, like people realizing the joke stopped being funny long ago while the performer never left the stage. As Trump keeps replaying the same act with different props and rotating cast members, while the plot never changes. A machine of chaos dressed as charisma that depends on distraction instead of direction.
Archbishop of Canterbury? What? Go on.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency. You're an attorney. How do you assess the legal battles here?
Yeah, I bet all those judges are huge fans of Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. But I think, Vince, that, one, we have an appeals process.
Good one, JD. You shoehorn.
Kimmel pulls that illusion apart with steady focus and does not need to shout or stretch the facts. He simply holds up a mirror because if you look long enough, the reflection tells the truth. And what remains is not a movement, but a rerun of delusion sold as destiny, where every press spectacle becomes another chance for him to underline the irony, to show how absurdity turned into normal practice and shamelessness into the standard, which means we are not watching politics, but performance art that escaped its frame. A presidency running like a parody of itself, with Trump doubling down on disorder and JD Vance filling the role of devoted understudy who never questions the script. And Kimmel avoids exaggeration because reality already outruns satire, while the real sadness is a country trapped inside a drama it never auditioned for. As every scandal and every headline and every meltdown arrives as a cliffhanger that never pays off. And Trump calls this momentum when it is only motion without direction, which Kimmel catches and turns into punchlines that sting more than policy, since reality keeps beating satire to the line. And the world now sets the setup while Trump delivers a punchline without noticing he has become the joke.
Knowing he's the joke.
Trump visited several countries in Asia: Malaysia, Japan, South Korea. He avoided Vietnam just for old time's sake. But the big event was his sit-down with Xi. Just before their talk, Trump sent China a message. He announced that he's ordered the Pentagon to start testing nuclear weapons again. And that's right, if they won't give him the peace prize the regular way, he's going to take it by force. Reporters on Air Force One asked him why he decided to do this and why he decided to do it right before he met with the Chinese. And his answer was basically, I did it because they did it.
With others doing testing, I think it's a...
Inside this theater of delusion, truth is treated like a heckler to be silenced rather than faced. Yet Kimmel refuses to play along and laughs where others flinch, showing how the spectacle collapses under its own weight. Because nothing bursts a manufactured myth faster than laughter, which strips the illusion of control and reveals the empty confidence beneath it. And Trump can command a crowd, but not credibility, while JD Vance can repeat the lines but cannot make them ring true. So the force of Kimmel's teardown rests in the balance between humor and heartbreak, where each joke reads like an autopsy on a political body drained of sincerity. And he does not mock only to score laughs, but to remind people how easily manipulation wears the mask of entertainment, how quickly charm hides in competence, and how danger can arrive wrapped in applause. Because what we are watching is not leadership, but choreography, where every statement and every stunt and every spectacle amounts to rehearsed confusion meant to make the audience forget how little gets done, with JD Vance standing behind like a supporting actor afraid to improvise as he nods along to a script written in permanent confusion. And somehow, this show is sold as vision, until Kimmel's irony cuts through and proves that even the best spin cannot turn nonsense into wisdom.
Speaker Mike Johnson said there's nothing more Trump can do about the shutdown. The guy who's ended 8 wars, a man who has ended wars that never even started, can't do anything about this. Some Republicans are very unhappy with Mike Johnson, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who reportedly lashed out at him on a call with House Republicans. She said her party was letting the country down and demanded to know the Republican plan for health care, which Johnson refused to share because there is no...
He shows how the brand of Trump's America morphed into a franchise of chaos, where loyalty is measured by how loudly you repeat the absurd and how quickly you ignore the obvious. And his comedy slices through that fog of devotion with clean precision, recognizing that the moment the laughter stops, the threat feels real, because humor becomes a form of resistance when reason stops landing. And Kimmel's strength is that he does not try to outshout the whirlwind. His delivery works because he treats the absurd with the only respect it deserves, which is mockery. And that is how you deflate a cult of personality, not by arguing in circles, but by taking out the air. Since Trump's presidency turned into a case study in branding over governing, where every controversy is reframed as courage, every mistake is recast as media sabotage, and every failure is pushed off as someone else's fault, while Kimmel waits and lets the absurdity fall under its own weight, because when everything becomes a spectacle, reality turns into the sharpest punchline. And in Trump's America, applause keeps replacing accountability. Every show is followed by denial, every contradiction by a spin, and the truth is not hidden so much as drowned by louder lies. Yet through all the noise, humor survives, not as an escape, but as clarity, because Kimmel's satire does not soften the hit, it sharpens it, and it reminds everyone that mockery aimed at power is not cruelty. It is a way to break through and a way to stay alert.